Today we're making some fence posts. In the summer I use a rotational grazing system for the water buffaloes. That means that I move the animals every day to fresh and new pasture. To do so I use this polywire fence line and these mobile fence posts made of plastic. But I also have a more stationary fence around the whole property. So far I've only used one field. I have two. Now it's time to let this field rest and start grazing on the other field. But to do so I need a fence. This fence is for keeping the water buffaloes inside, while other animals like deer and mooses on the outside. I have 1.3 kilometers to fence, and they say that I should have a fence post every 4 meters. That would be roughly a little over 300 fence posts. And one fence post is about 30 Norwegian kroner. I guess that's around $3 American. A good neighbor of mine said that I could cut down some trees on his property and try to make my own fence posts. Now you could do this in a lot of ways if you have the time for it. I should have done this a long time ago. And I want to get this done before the grazing season starts. 5 years ago, this exact post was put in the ground with no treatment at all. They just took down the tree and put it in the ground, and 5 years later, it's still standing. This exact fence has been used for goats, and I mean, if these posts have kept goats on the inside, I'm sure it's good enough for the water buffaloes as well. I could do this alone and use a couple of days. Instead, I've invited a couple of friends to do it with me. I'm really excited to get this done and to meet some people as well. Åh, så ont i armen. Apparently this is also a good thing for the guy who owns the forest. For him to have healthy trees, it's important to get rid of the competition. So if you have 3 or 4 trees stuck together, it's a good thing to remove a couple of them so that the remaining trees don't have to fight over nutrition and sunlight. Sunlight! Now these are fence posts that you get in the store. They are so-called pressure impregnated, so they're supposed to last for a long time. I used these when I set up my first fence a couple of years ago. I have had to replace a couple of those posts so they don't last forever, and I do have some left, so I will also use them. It'll be interesting to see in a couple of years the difference between the raw ones and the store-bought ones, but I will also try and treat some of my own fence posts the old-fashioned way. But first we gotta go get them, and I think I'm gonna manage to get a little help on this task as well. So these are the tools I use when I put the fence posts in the ground. This one, you start with this one. And I have an EDC Elbow. Put the fence post in here and you hammer it down, and then this takes over, and you just hammer it until you reach the desired height. A lot of the posts are too big to fit in this, and they're probably also too big for me to hammer down. So I'm gonna go to a neighbor and borrow something that we could use to push the fence post down in the ground, which weighs a ton. And if I'm not mistaken, lambing season is upon us, and maybe we'll see some newborns. So before I start cutting into the fence post to see how long they're going to be, I have to measure and see how high I can get the rock or the stone or the whatever you call it. And to do that, I have to lift the thing and see how high it gets without the tractor tipping over. Now maybe I do need some counterweight on the back of the tractor, but I guess we're going to find out. It snapped right off. So I guess the pocket clip just snapped right off. It didn't make the transition from Brooklyn to Norway. At least I got to measure the fence post so we can get that starting. But if you know where I can get a pocket clip for this knife, preferably a deep carry clip, please comment below. So what we're going to do is we're going to take off some of the bark of the tree, and to do that I have borrowed this device, tool. It doesn't look like it's from yesterday. The reason I removed the bark is for that the tree to get rid of some moist, but I'm also going to try and burn them and make a protective layer so that everything that lives on the tree dies, so that nothing in the ground that wants to get into the tree and eat it gets in. So it might get a little more resistant from the surroundings down in the ground. Alright, before we do anything else, I just want to go and make sure that we can actually push one in the ground with the tractor, so that I don't do this a couple of hundred times and it doesn't work. Well, I gotta say that was quite a success. Now it's far from straight, but I guess this is also far from being a one-man gig. So if your closest friend is the couch and Netflix these days, and you want to get some fresh air and a sunburn, and maybe work up a little sweat pushing down some fence posts with me, feel free to reach out. So this is the end result. I found it difficult to know where to stop. I guess you need to get in there so you kill everything that lives. but you can't kill the post by burning it too long, so I guess this should work. If I were to scorch 300 fence posts, I'd probably do something else than the barrel, because it took quite some time to make just a couple. If you want to see how this project ends, and if I get a fence at all, feel free to subscribe. See you in the next one.